Sometimes when I profile a player, I can't find any good baseball stories about him, just some stats and maybe a short bio, if that. While other players I profile that Dad has autographs from are superstars and have entire books written about them. Player I'm talking about today pitched in the majors for parts of 2 seasons with the Boston Red Sox, and during his short time in the Big Show, he was fortunate to play in an era with some of the all-time baseball greats, getting to do what thousands of kids dream of and what every minor leaguer wishes for. When at the 1960 All-Star Game, this lefty pitcher got the opportunity to sit down and talk with not just All-Stars and future Hall of Famers, but living legends and some of the great characters of the game that are still talked about today. If I told you all of his baseball stories, this would be a long episode. But it doesn't matter to me if my shows are long or short. They are what they are. Dad was fortunate to get quite a few Red Sox autographs at their 1959 spring training camp, Boston's first in Arizona, with those autographs being signed by actual Red Sox players, not former or future Red Sox players that were in the minors when Dad got their signature, usually signing while playing for the Seals. Because of the Red Sox West Coast connection with the Seals over the years, I have found a lot of good stories about their times playing with some of the big names of the day. Just like today's Red Sox southpaw pitcher who in 1958 at his first big league camp met some of those players. And even though he didn't make the team his first 2 camps, the lefty hurler would in 1960. And that's when he really became friends with Ted Williams. And like many over the years that played alongside the splendid Splinter, this now former ball player has a few stories to tell about what a classy guy Ted Williams was. And it's always nice to hear these baseball stories straight from the horse's mouth, as some of today's show is taken from an ongoing oral history project from Oklahoma State University. So now people can hear and see these stories from a guy who pitched in the big leagues over 50 years ago and has some really good stories from his time playing baseball. So let's go. Not a lot of teenagers get 16 high-profile offers from colleges. Thomas Bruce Borland did. He goes by Tom, but his nickname is Spike. And for today's show, that's what I will call him. Tom stood 6'3" and weighed 170 pounds, appearing very tall and thin with large ears that sprouted out from his head at an angle, making him look like a railroad spike. The lefty pitcher was also a lefty batter, making his MLB debut in 1960, born in 1933 in El Dorado, Kansas, same as his parents. In the interview, he calls it El Dorado, replacing the O's with A's, and says it with the Oklahoma accent. That's because his family moved to McAlester, Oklahoma when he was 4. As a youth, he played American Legion baseball and was lucky enough to get any kid's dream job when hired to work the scoreboard for his hometown team, the McAlester Rockets. And later on, the young lefty sometimes pitched batting practice, saying he felt like a big shot, even though they were just Class D. Whitey Herzog was on that team, and Spike would pitch batting practice to Whitey. And years later in the majors, Whitey would come up to the plate, and the lefty up on the mound is the kid who worked the scoreboard back in McAlester. While attending McAlester High School, the teenager played the 3 main sports and did the high jump on the track team as well. As a senior, his school's baseball team was crowned state champs, beating the high school from Stillwater, Oklahoma, with Tom Borland named Most Outstanding Player. He chose to go to Oklahoma A&M, who offered scholarships in both baseball and basketball, located in Stillwater, about 3 hours from home. When he started A&M, he recognized a lot of the same players he beat in the state championship just a few months prior, saying, "They're a great bunch of guys and college was a lot of fun." But he was a little wild and regrets some of the stuff, blaming it on the exuberance of youth. Spike started college in the fall of 1951 and while playing on the freshman basketball team, took an elbow to the head and suffered a severe concussion, ending up in the hospital. Later, his 2 coaches got together and decided he should stick to baseball. Spike said his grades weren't good enough to play both sports anyway. He would solidify his name as one of the great college baseball players of his era and has all the accolades to prove it. First, let's start with the 3 Baseball Hall of Fames Tom Borland is in. El Dorado, Kansas Hall of Fame, McAlester High School Hall of Fame, and Oklahoma State University Hall of Fame. Okay, the first 2 are pretty obscure halls of fame, but Spike will always be remembered because he's in the NCAA College Baseball Hall of Fame as well. He didn't pitch much His first 2 years as an Aggie, becoming a starter in 1954 with a record of 8-2 and led A&M to their first College World Series, placing third. In the first game of the series, Spike was put in as a reliever, but won the game with his bat, hitting a single in the bottom of the 14th to beat Arizona. The following game, he pitched all 12 innings, again beating Arizona and their pitcher, Don Lee, with the standout that day being Arizona's Don Geely, who was 4 for 5 at the plate. Spike remembers it like this. He hit 2 home runs off me. Both of them were just inside the line, but I still beat him. Don gives me a hard time. He always reminds me of those home runs. And I'd say, yeah, what was the outcome of the game? Spike won both his starts in the 1954 College World Series and saved another in relief. He pitched even better in 1955, his senior year going 12-0, pitching 10 complete games with the team winning 27 and losing only 3. Again, with Spike leading the Aggies to the College World Series, this time placing second. Before being inducted into the Halls of Fame previously mentioned, the following honors were bestowed on Tom Borland, Most Outstanding Player of the 1955 College World Series, then named First Team Baseball All-American, leaving the school with a pitching record of 19-2. And later, when the NCAA came up with the first ever College World Series All-Decade team, Tom Borland was on it. In 1957, Oklahoma A&M changed its name to Oklahoma State University, but Spike was quick to point out that he went to Oklahoma A&M, not State, and he's a proud Aggie. Just after his death in May of 2013, the school would honor Mr. Borland in a few ways. First, they had a big pregame ceremony at Allie P. Reynolds Stadium that they called Tom Borland Night. Then the school retired his jersey number 11, and that number was immortalized when it was put on the right field wall of the stadium and unveiled before the game. Then each member of his family got to throw out a ceremonial first pitch. Tom Borland was posthumously inducted into the College Baseball Hall of Fame a month after this ceremony. So after having fun on and off the field for 4 years at college, and he was very successful, Spike went right into the minors, July of 1955. But there was a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes for months. Starts off, he was signed as a bonus baby by Baltimore Orioles GM Paul Richards, who did this without notifying Orioles executives, therefore violating part of the bonus baby rule. MLB Commissioner Ford Frick could have suspended Paul Richards for the entire season, instead fined him $2,500. Another part of the bonus baby rule at the time states the player has to stay on the major league club for at least 2 years before he could be sent down to the minors. Paul Richards also broke this rule by making an agreement with Oakland Oaks owner Brick Laws to loan Tom Borland to the Oaks, who signed him for $4,000. He would pitch a couple of months for the club under manager Lefty O'Doul. Problem was, GM Paul Richards didn't tell Oaks owner Brick Laws that Spike had already signed as a bonus baby. When MLB commissioner found out, the Orioles were fined $2,000 and Tom Borland was declared a free agent and could sign with anyone but the Baltimore Orioles or its affiliates. Baltimore couldn't do anything right when it came to Tom Borland, aka Spike. And MLB commissioner would reprimand the Orioles again, this time for pitching him in an exhibition game using an alias. So in October of 1955, with all that behind him, Spike chose to sign with the Boston Red Sox, but wouldn't suit up with them. He'd suit up in fatigues and wouldn't sport the Boston Red Sox flannel for a couple of years, missing the 1956 and 57 seasons while serving in the Army, driving a truck around Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, but was able to get away for a few days in June of 56 and married Eileen, the pretty girl he met in college, who was a laundromat cashier and was the girl his friend said he'd never get. They were married till he died. It wasn't until the 1958 Red Sox spring training camp in Florida that Spike would put on that big league uniform and get his first taste of the major league talent he'd have to face. He didn't make the cut, and would start the season on Boston's top affiliate, the Minneapolis Millers, under manager Gene Mauch. Spike credits Gene, like so many others have, with teaching him how to pitch, and also credits Toby Green, his coach at A&M, saying both coaches were hard on him, and that's what coaches are supposed to do. He pitched for the Millers for parts of 3 seasons, including their back-to-back American Association championship seasons. Invited for the second time to Red Sox spring training camp in 1959, this time held in Arizona. This is when Dad got Tom Borland's autograph. At the end of camp, Spike was again sent down to pitch for the Millers, finishing the season going 14-8. When asked about his time in the minors, Spike told this story about a plane ride after a game when the team was flying out of Louisville back to Minneapolis. As soon as the team got on the plane, they noticed the stewardess had already buckled herself in, and the passengers haven't even all boarded yet. When they were all seated, she announced, "There will be no cabin service on tonight's flight as we will be flying through a storm." Spike said, "I tell you what, we bounced all over everywhere." Then he tells about the one black player on the team, Bob Boyd, who was obviously terrified. And Spike said he felt bad for him because Bob was treated badly most places that they went to. So at one point during the flight, probably after hitting a pocket of strong turbulence, one of the players yelled over the noise of the engine and the storm, "Hey, Bobby, the pilot's putting on a parachute. What do you think we should do?" Not everybody on the flight was amused, especially Bob Boyd, who Spike said the color in his face was gone long before that joke. I can imagine they were all very uneasy, to say the least. That's over 2 hours in the air, flying through a storm in a steel tube that just might be your coffin. And to make things worse, this is around the same time of the plane crash that killed the Big Bopper, 17-year-old Richie Valens, and the great Buddy Holly. Their deaths will be forever known as the day the music died. So after having a great 1960 spring training camp, his third in a row at Boston, Tom Borland was named Outstanding Rookie of the Cactus League and called up in May, pitching the rest of the season with the Red Sox, and has a few big league stories saying, "I can talk to you all day long about baseball because that's all I know." Adding, "I challenged batters. I was never afraid of anyone." Some of his stories come from his time at the 1960 MLB All-Star Weekend, where he was picked not as an All-Star, but as the left-handed pitcher to pitch batting practice for the All-Stars. Spike said, "I faced some of them during the season. I struck out Al Kaline twice. I faced the Yankees 6 times and struck out Maris just about every time I faced him." He told a good story about how he got Mickey Mantle to pop up a ball higher than he ever saw before. It was during his time at that All-Star game that Tom Borland was able to sit down in the clubhouse for 45 minutes and pick the brain of legendary catcher Yogi Berra about the philosophy of pitching. And Spike has a few stories from that encounter with Yogi that would lead to others when they became friends. That's the thing about making it to the majors, even if it's just for a while, because there's a good chance you'll come across some of the more famous major league characters of the game and get to hear some of their stories. And because you're now in the majors, perhaps you yourself become part of a great story, just like Tom Borland did while he was in the big show. Like the time when Red Sox were playing in Chicago at Comiskey Park, White Sox owner Sport Shirt Bill Veeck had just installed a $300,000 so-called exploding scoreboard. Sport Shirt Bill was always ready to shake things up with his ball club and the league, and was not well liked by many in baseball for a variety of reasons, like installing a gimmicky so-called exploding scoreboard. It was actually beautifully designed with many different colored lights that looked like explosions and would light and flash every time the White Sox hit a home run. While that was happening, from behind the scoreboard, actual fireworks would be going off in the air, and they say if you were at the park, the booms were extremely loud. While this feast for the eyes was going on, there's a variety of sound effects, such as thundering horse hoofs being pumped through a very loud sound system. All the while, thousands and thousands of fans are yelling and clapping, just going nuts. The kicker is, the whole time while all this is going on, they play that annoying circus song over the PA system on a loop. You know the one. The fireworks, they are real and set up by a person for each home run. Everything else is done electronically by the public address announcer flipping a switch. So that sets the scene. Red Sox pitcher Tom Borland, a.k.a. Spike, was on the mound in a perfect spot to see, hear, and endure this entire spectacle after having just given up a home run. He had to stand there and wait till the whole ordeal was over. So as the whole fiasco starts to wind down, the fans settle, and the umpire throws Spike another ball. Spike said, "I towed the rubber, looked up from my signs, when all of a sudden the whole thing started back up again as if somebody had just hit another home run. So he stood there on the mound and waited while the whole process started up again. All the hoopla, the lights, the thundering horse hoofs, with all the fans going crazy again. And the whole time that song plays, Spike said he could see the White Sox owner, sports shirt Bill Veeck, up in the owner's box right above the White Sox dugout laughing. So the park eventually quiets down for the second time. The annoying song stops, and Spike starts to toe the rubber again. But even before he could look up for his signs, the whole process started up again. The thundering horse hoofs, the lights, the fans going crazy. On top of all that, of course, was that song. Having to listen to this after giving up a home run is Tom Borland's fault, and he would own that. But a miscue or malfunction by a stadium employee happening once is bad enough, but twice? Fortunately for Spike and all the other dogs near Comiskey Park, the fireworks did not go off because there was no time to set them up. So the whole thing cycles through for the third time as Spike stands on the mound, ball in hand, and waits. Tom tells the interviewer that he always had a bit of a temper, and when he looked up and saw sports shirt Bill now really laughing, Spike said, "I decided if he liked it so well, I'm going to let you have this ball," and I started walking over to where he was sitting. Some of the players could see what I was thinking about doing, and a lot of the players didn't like him. So they were saying, "Throw it, Tom, throw it, throw it." They were encouraging me. Umpire Ed Runge came running down the third baseline yelling, "Don't throw that ball, kid. Don't throw that ball, kid. You don't make enough money to throw that ball, kid." It was funny to watch this old former ball player get animated and start shifting in his chair, still upset like it happened just yesterday. Then he said, "When I started walking towards Bill Veeck, all that laughter went off his face because he didn't know if he was going to be able to get out of the way of the ball." Another good Ted Williams story Tom Borland told was about the one time he had just been taken out of a close game with the lead for a pinch hitter and was done for the day. Spike was sitting in the clubhouse, obviously looking bummed out, when Teddy Ballgame walked in and said, "Left-hander, what you looking so glum about? You did great out there today." Spike said, "It's not that. Problem is I have no gift for Father's Day Sunday." Ted goes, "Does he like to fish?" Right then and there, while on the road from the visitors' clubhouse, Ted makes one phone call and arranged to have one of his signature Ted Williams model rod and reel to be delivered to Tom Borland's dad that Sunday, who went on to catch a 6-pound bass and then took a photo holding that fish in one hand and Ted's rod and reel in the other. Spike said later when Ted got that picture, he was so excited, he brought it to the clubhouse and went around showing it to every player. Spike perks up and says with a big smile, Ted was really proud that it was caught with his rod and reel. Spike pitched in one game for the Red Sox in 1961, then spent the season in the Pacific Coast League with the Seattle Rainiers. Boston would trade him before the start of the 1962 season to the expansion Houston Colt 45s, but he never played for them. Instead, his final 2 seasons were spent back home pitching for the Oklahoma City 89ers, Houston's AAA affiliate, and then out of the game at age 30. After his college days, Spike played 7 seasons of pro ball with parts of 2 as a major league pitcher, making 27 big league appearances, and in his 4 MLB starts, his record was perfect, 0-4. He consistently lost, but claims he could be 2-2 because in 2 of the games he was taken out with the lead and said Teddy Ballgame cost him one by dropping a fly ball. His record was 48-39 in the minors. Another thing about making it to the majors, even if you only played parts of 2 seasons like Tom Borland did, there's a chance you might get a baseball card with your face on it. Tom Borland has 2 Topps cards, and one is a 1960 Rookie Stars card, and you can see why he's called Spike. He also has a 1960 Leaf card, and I saw a really cool Oakland Oaks commemorative card that shows him pitching with Oaks Park in the background. You know what's really sad is how you can invite somebody into your house who turns out is greedy with no respect for others. And this person will take advantage of anybody from a kid to a former ball player who is at the end of his life. In my opinion, that is what happened to Tom Borland, though he probably didn't realize it at the time. So while talking about autographs with this interviewer, Spike tells him how a few months prior a guy came to his house who said he was from Topps Trading Card Company, and he had Tom sign a contract, then sit down and autograph 600 cards for $500. I figure they were all Topps Heritage cards because I saw one signed online for $80 raw. Tom didn't act like he was taken advantage of, but you can kind of tell he realizes now he was. He kind of played it off, saying, I don't know what they plan on doing with all them cards, but I know there's a lot of signed cards out there now. Spike would attend college all 4 years at OSU, but did not graduate, skipping his finals, choosing instead to fly to Baltimore for a tryout with the Orioles. That turned out successful, and he started his pro baseball career. He was only 33 credits short of getting a degree, and he thought about going back, but didn't. So after his baseball days were over, Tom Borland doesn't embark on his new career in his chosen field that he went to college for. Instead, he's another former ball player with a family looking for a job. Back home in Stillwater, he tries his hand selling insurance, then runs into a friend who offers him a job to drive a truck for a tire company. He took it, and 5 years later bought the business with a partner and ran it for decades with his wife Eileen. They raised 4 kids in the house they bought in 1960, and is where this interview took place. Spike said he no longer follows baseball because the game has changed so much, but will always watch the College World Series and has 2 season tickets behind home plate for OSU games, but won't go if it's too cold, saying he's chicken. Since retiring, he just sits around the house and plays solitaire on the computer. Mr. Borland had a pretty bad cough, like that of a smoker, and it flared up a few times during this interview that was taken a couple of years before he passed away. So as the interview was winding down and he was asked about his time in the majors, the first thing Tom Borland said was, I'm sad it wasn't longer, of course. I miss the camaraderie of the ball players and playing in the major league parks and all the fans. Ballparks full of people. Just the whole atmosphere of Major League Baseball is big in my memory, and I'm very blessed with the experience as I had. When you think about the thousands of young men who want to go to the major leagues and never make it, and I got there. It may have only been for a cup of coffee, but I got there and got to experience the major league feeling. I have mentioned that a few times in my shows because for any ball player, that's a real big deal to be able to say that you were a major leaguer, even if it is for only one game, in some cases. Tom Borland is surprised that people still send him cards and letters wanting his autograph more than 50 years after being out of the game, and as always, would sign for free. He said, I'm old now, and you think you're forgotten, but you're not, and that's a very special feeling. Another Ted Williams story Tom Borland told from the 1960 season, his first in the big leagues and Ted Williams' last. One day at practice, Spike heard Ted was looking for a lefty. When Spike saw Ted, he said, I hear you're looking for a left-hander. Ted said, No, I was looking for you. What a nice feeling that must have been for the rookie. The interview I watched was almost 2 hours long, and at one point the interviewer was about to move on when Spike stopped him and then leaned in and said, I just want to tell you what kind of person Ted Williams was. Then he sat back and proceeded to tell how he was picked by Ted to personally pitch batting practice for the living legend. He said, Ted told me to pitch like I was in a ball game. The whole time it was just Ted hitting. We had a catcher and he'd give me signs and everything, just like in a regular game. And when we were on the road, I'd throw him batting practice, and when I'd go in to change my shirt, there'd be $100 bill in my locker every time, and he wouldn't take it back. That's the kind of guy Ted Williams was. That was my original ending. Normally, if I have a Ted Williams story, I'll end the show with that, but this story Tom Borland told about his major league debut would be hard to top. It was on May 15th, 1960. Red Sox rookie pitcher Tom Borland, a.k.a. Spike, is in the bullpen at Fenway Park and doesn't know it yet, but is about to make his big league debut. He gets word he might be going in, so he starts warming up. He then gets the nod and starts to exit the bullpen from out in right field to make it that once-in-a-lifetime walk out to the big league mound for the first time. But before exiting the bullpen, he is stopped by Red Sox veteran pitcher Frank Sullivan, who doesn't give the rookie advice or even encouragement, but instead tells him this. Kid, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go out there, You're going to take your warm-up tosses, and when you get ready to pitch, you're going to look down for your signs and your legs will turn to water. It's at this point in the interview, Spike gets a little excited and starts coughing and says, I laughed at him because I played in front of thousands of fans when pitching in all those College World Series games. So after those words of insight from his teammate, Spike now starts his walk out to the mound, saying, I didn't take that little cart, I walked out. And so he did. The rookie went up on the mound, took his warm-up throws, and was all ready to pitch. He looked down for his signs, and Spike leans into the interviewer and says with a big smile, my knees turned to water. He called timeout, turned around and looked over at the bullpen and could see Frank Sullivan laughing at him. Frank yelled out, I told you so.